WillE has been making, I think this is WillE, he's been uploading to the actual World of Warcraft channel on the official YouTube. So it's about the best boss fights in Wrath Classic. I myself have a little bit of my, you know, favorites when it comes to this, guys. But let's see here. The best boss fights in Wrath Classic, guys.
Raiding has always been one of my personal favorite things.
If he says Malagos on this list, I might lose my mind, okay? The thing is, Malagos, okay, we're 3 seconds in and I'm already pausing. Malagos is a good boss fight. I just wish that they didn't make the last phase of the boss fight into that weird vehicle. I don't know. It's actually not a bad boss fight. It's just the vehicle part of it is so bad. But let's see what he says though.
To do in World of Warcraft, and now that Wrath of the Lich King Classic is finally out, we're going to be encountering some of the most well-remembered encounters this game has ever seen. Welcome all, my name is WillE. Today we're checking out the best boss fights from every tier of Wrath Classic. Let's get straight into it. First of all, compared
so he's doing one for each tier. So the first tier he's doing one, and then for another one. Alright.
Straight into it. First of all, compared to Wrath back in 2008, creatures as well as bosses in Naxxramas have had their health and damage boosted up by about 30% to allow for some more interesting interactions.
I'm interested to see what you guys think as well, what's your favorites.
Between players and bosses in the earlier weeks of the tier being available. Honorable mentions in Naxxramas go to Patchwork. Those buffed up hateful strikes are going to be the cause of many a wipe in the first few weeks, I can tell you that. Second is to SARON, who drops one of the very few remnants of an achievement left in Wrath.
Okay, I'm gonna say it. Yeah, I'm gonna say it now. I think for me, in the first phase so far in Wrath, I agree with you, Rookie. Sarth 3D is the coolest boss fight there is. I really, really do like that one. There's lots of mechanics going on. There's like firewalls to avoid stuff on the ground, like bing, bong, bang, running around, portals going on, ads. It's a really cool boss fight, and it's actually very, very sick. Speaking of Sarth 3D, guys, we're going to be doing Sarth 3D this Monday on GuzuTV and Immortal, like the Undying on Nax 10. Nax 10 Undying run, Sarth 3D this Monday on GuzuTV.
Key to the focusing iris will be needed to begin the Malagos encounter over in the Eye of Eternity in Caldera. Only one person in the raid will need it though, so it's not going to be too tough to get. In tier 7 you'll also face off against the likes of Kel'Thuzad for a second time perhaps, Malagos of course, and Sartharion as the end of tier bosses. I think the last one has the most potential to be interesting though, as I would say Sartharion is the big challenge of tier 7. Found under Wormrest Temple, Sartharion's lair features a dynamic level of difficulty.
Go on. Mayor Cat. What's up, dude? Thank you.
Difficulty. Now, you can deal with the 3 drakes surrounding the central boss in advance, which is going to make the encounter considerably easier. But if you take on Sartharion leaving the drakes alive, he will gradually call them down to join the battle, adding their own mechanics into the fight, such as increasing damage taken from other mechanics significantly, hatching eggs which spawn whelplings, or enraging the boss.
It's cool.
New to Wrath Classic is a further health buff added through choosing to fight Sartharion alongside his drakes, making strategies to zerg him down as soon as possible much less viable early on.
He says early on. I was just about to say that. Like right now, it's a really cool boss fight because it's very few raids who can just straight up skip all the mechanics and just suck the boss, right? But very soon, once people have all their tier gear, once people have their Nax 25 full biz, you can just like zerg down Sarth 3D with no issues. You can just completely ignore the ads, zerg down the boss, and kill it, right?
Defeating the 3 drakes variation of this boss adds many new pieces of loot to the table, a mount, as well as titles. Next, it's time for the Ulduar part of the video. Let's start with MIMIRON, one of the keepers of Ulduar. Found midway through the raid after a tram ride to the colossal Spark of Imagination, this encounter begins with the keeper busying around his latest creation, the Leviathan MK2, a siege tank variation with several hard-hitting abilities such as Shock Blast, which will instantly dispatch any melee player too slow on their...
I must admit, back in the day, I didn't get very far into Ulduar. Ulduar was when I played a little bit casually, so I actually only got up to Freya, and my guild killed Freya. We didn't do MIMIRON and all those things, but I remember it's the Gladiator boss. What is he called in Ulduar? I think it's Hodor. Oh no, it's Thorim, I think. Thorim. With like when you gotta go through that little cave and like split up your group and stuff like that. I thought that boss was really, really, really cool. Thorim, yeah. That one is I think was my favorite out of all the bosses. Razor Scale was cool too, but that was just because of the way that it Like it was like you bring the back down the dragon, you pop all cooldowns and you blast, right? But Uldor is just a cool raid, all things considered.
As you gradually lower his health.
A bit off topic, but it's nice to see Blizz actually putting actual WoW contributors on board and acknowledging their content. Yeah, like this is on this is like on the official WoW World of Warcraft channel, which is awesome that WillE got to be on that, right?
Health bar, the next stage and next creation will be revealed. The VX-001 Anti-Personnel Assault Cannon, a giant two-armed machine which has signature abilities like Rocket Strike, which does a solid 5 million damage to anybody unfortunate enough to be caught by it.
Yeah, don't be caught by that.
Up, causing the entire raid to have to get behind the boss fast or be deleted.
This is cool.
Next phase has the aerial command unit floating from the central platform. Here the raid splits with range gradually damaging down the boss whilst being careful on threat, and melee dealing with bots on the ground. These bots will drop magnetic cores needed to ground the aerial unit, and then everybody can DPS it down together. And once you've dealt with that, the final phase of the encounter begins, as all three creations are bolted together to make Voltron, a mega boss that contains some of the toughest mechanics from each phase. So that's already a lot to deal with, and that is the normal mode.
This must be so hectic, man, like in pucks. I'm excited to do the Guzu pucks with, like, do the pucks with the, oh my god. I can already feel the frustration and the blood pressure building up in my body.
You see the big red button in the back over there? Yeah. Why don't you go and press that and see what happens?
Didn't you see the sign that said, do not push this button?
You've just activated one of Ulduar's hard modes, and a harder one at that. Firefighter puts an enrage of 10 minutes on the encounter and adds new mechanics, buffs all units' health, and most notably has fire constantly spawning throughout the encounter, adding a whole new level of difficulty to it. Next up is an old god, and how could he not make this list after having...
I have never done Sarth originally, back in the day. I know the boss fight. I know the thing where you gotta turn away because like of the insanity stuff. You gotta go through all the memories of Arthas and like all those thingamajigs. Did I say Sarth? I meant YOGG SARON. That's what I meant. I've never done the boss, but I do know the strats for the boss.
Driven all the other Titan Keepers to madness, and us having to set that right, it's clear no prison could hold the monster known as YOGG SARON. The encounter can be accessed right at the end of the instant, starting off with summoning the boss himself by defeating several Gardens of YOGG SARON on top of Sarah. With YOGG SARON emerging, the real encounter begins. After a short period of time, portals to the Mind's Eye materialize. Entering shows you several visions, including the forging of the Dragon Soul and the assassination of King Lane. Dispelling the illusions, you expose the brain of YOGG SARON. And once the brain team has done enough damage, you'll enter the final phase. This is...
so like you need, whenever it does this little sushi thing, you gotta like turn your character away, or else you gotta go insane, right?
Is the DPS race portion of the boss where immortal guardians regularly spawn, who, as their name suggests, are, you know, immortal, unless they get hit by a certain mechanic, that is. Also during this phase, YOGG SARON attempts to rapidly deteriorate the sanity of the raid. That's another mechanic special to this boss, actually, sanity. Several mechanics will make you lose it, and a few gain it, and if it ever depletes entirely, you become insane and must be dealt with quickly. There is also a lot of customization players have access to through the Titan Keepers, which you have...
Yeah, so you can activate like a heart mode as well. This is what I really like about Ulduar. Like Ulduar is like you can do heart modes for pretty much all the bosses by not doing certain things or activating certain mechanics, right? Which is cool. Obviously, guys, when we do this with the stream, with the community, we're gonna do YOGG 0 first week. It is what it is.
Each of Mimiron, Thorim, Freya, and Hodir can assist you in the encounter with incredibly helpful effects like Freya's Sanity Well, which restores sanity to the player, or Thorim's Titanic Storm, which is the only way to permanently defeat immortal guardians. Attempting YOGG SARON with no aid from the Keepers increases the difficulty of the encounter significantly. The achievement for defeating him under these conditions is called Alone in the Darkness, and adds bonus loot, titles, and of course Mimiron's head to the loot table.
We're gonna get this, guys. 100%. Mark my words.
An honourable mention here to ALGALON the Observer as well. This is a hard mode only boss that can be accessed after having cleared many of the other hard mode encounters in the raid. The kicker here is that this boss has a timer for how long players have before he will despawn for the room.
Okay, back in the day when Wrath was originally out, when I heard people killed ALGALON the Observer, it blew my mind. In my little like 12-year-old brain, I couldn't comprehend that people could kill such a difficult boss. It was like so out of reach for like a mere mortal like myself. And like you go into like Dalaran, and yeah, there's like that yell, "Citizens of Dalaran!" You know, and then there's like that yell from Khadgar. I never got to do it myself, but when I heard people killed this boss, I was like, what? There's a secret hard mode boss? And I was so blown away by it, right? Obviously, it's not going to be like that nowadays. Like, most guilds will be able to clear it, but it's cool. It's cool.
Remainder
Khadgar, same thing. Some mage person, okay? You guys know what I mean. It's some mage person. Ronin, Khadgar. Yeah, exactly.
Reset, and that's only 1 hour. Oh, and lore-wise, he's sending a message to essentially destroy the entire world, so no pressure. This visually impressive encounter has you quite literally fighting off space, featuring constellations, black holes, and collapsing stars. Though unlike other bosses we've gone over so far who have different levels of difficulty, this one will be a little bit trickier to see as he is hard mode only. Moving on from Ulduar though to Trial of the Crusader, there are
unironically one of the best raids, okay? It is unironically one of the best raids there is, okay? I loved this raid back in the day, dude. Oh my god. The little worm bosses, then you have the big centaur guy. You like the floor falls down and you fall down as ANUB'ARAK. It's like, what the hell? He was here all the time. TRTC was a good raid. You face Jaraxxus, Iridor Lord of the Burning Legion. Exactly. It was so cool, man. I loved it. I loved the TRTC.
There are a few memorable encounters here too, such as the faction champions, a kind of brawly PvE PvP crossover, having your faction take on the opposing one to prove your strength. And who could forget the opening voice line?
You face Jaraxxus, Iridor Lord of the Burning Legion.
Yep.
But the one to highlight here is ANUB'ARAK.
ANUB'ARAK. That was actually a cool boss too. I like this a lot.
The second time you will be fighting this boss during this expansion. The first time being an end boss of the dungeon, Azure Narub, of course. This time around he is a lot more challenging.
Oh yeah.
One of his phases has him chase down players under the ground.
I remember this, dude. When I fought ANUB'ARAK back in the day, like, this was hard, but I didn't do all the bosses in Ulduar, as I said, but TRTC, we did clear every week in my guild.
To impale them, all of the while the raid is dealing with ads and shooting down frost orbs to create safe permafrost zones on the ground. During the final phase, he unleashes a leeching swarm, which on heroic difficulty drains 30% of players' current health every single second, meaning your entire raid's health bars are looking scarily low all of the time. And on top of there being normal or heroic for Trial of the Crusader, there are also achievements for defeating bosses with no wipes and even no death in the raid at all, both of which add various rewards such as titles, mounts, and of course bonus loot. And finally we get to Icecrown Citadel, and if there was...
I love Icecrown, man. Icecrown, that was the peak in my life as a video game player. Ice Cream Citadel was the peak of like fun for me. All my friends were playing the game, we're all raiding, everybody got home on Skype every day to talk to each other and like arena. Oh, I love this. This was the peak of my like childhood gaming life. I loved it, man. It was so good. Maybe not as good as when I played Heroes of Might and Magic 3 with my boys, but it gets up there.
There's one fight which you just cannot miss during this expansion. It has to be the guy on the front of the game box, Arthas Menethil, the Lich King. At the pinnacle of the Frozen Throne, after having battled through the enormous Icecrown Citadel, this fight is the culmination of the entire expansion. The fight starts off instantly with several deadly mechanics.
Okay, I don't mean to flex, guys, but I was the first of all my friends to get Kingslayer. Just letting you guys know, I got Kingslayer first in my friend group.
That must be managed correctly, such as Necrotic Plague, applying a huge damage over time effect to a target, as well as Infest, meaning that healers have to be super
They were so jealous.
keeping the raid topped
They were
off.
so jealous.
Phase 2 sees the iconic Defile ability enter the encounter. Think of it as like a Mega Death and Decay, which expands each time it deals damage, and can easily cover near the entire platform if handled incorrectly. In Phase 3, the Lich King attempts to harvest the raid's souls and teleports them inside of Frostmourne itself, where they have to assist King Terenas in defeating a Soul Warden before they are returned back to the encounter. At 10%, the big twist of the fight happens as Arthas casts Fury of Frostmourne, instantly killing every single member of the raid and preparing to resurrect, in his words, the greatest fighting force Azeroth has ever seen. That is until Tyrion calls on the light and finally breaks free from his icy tomb, and players are able to once and for all put an end to Arthas's reign. There are varying levels of difficulty on this fight too, beyond just...
Why is he like... His mouth... Sorry, it just looked kind of funny with the way his mouth was.
And heroic.
He's like... He's like pogging or something, yeah.
Will be applied eventually, allowing players to perform up to 30% better in their combat role, which makes seeing this final battle of Icecrown Citadel very achievable. And those are some of my picks from the most memorable bosses throughout Wrath of the Lich King. There are so many more that are great and are worth talking about too, so do let us know which encounters you're looking forward to doing again, or maybe for the first time ever. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in Northrend.
I like that he didn't even mention Ruby Sanctum. It wasn't even mentioned that that raid existed in this video. Regardless though, good video, man. There it is. It's really cool that they bring it to like the official World of Warcraft channel, right? Like bring content creators onto that and like acknowledge them and stuff like that. The video is right here, guys. I'll let it be known there. We don't accept it. Yeah, Ruby Sanctum is definitely a weird one, let's be honest. But there it is, guys. The best boss fights in Wrath Classic. I think I agree with it overall. I'm surprised he didn't add more mentions from Icecrown Citadel. I really liked Lord Maragor. I thought that was a cool way to like enter Icecrown Citadel and everything like that. Even Lady Death Whisper was amazing, but obviously you can't add everything into the video. But it was a good little take there from WillE. Alright, guys, let's do Wintergrass Plant real fast, okay?